Hello everyone, it's Shannon here with Hero Arts. In today's video, we are going to create this winter scene with a Christmas tree focal point featuring the October My Monthly Hero Kit. We're going to start this card with an A2 panel of white cardstock, and I'm going to die cut it with this circle die that's approximately 3 3/4 of an inch in diameter. We're now going to move on to the large scene fancy dies from the classic and premium kit. I'm going to use just 2 of these scene dies, not using the one with the sky. And I have another A2 panel of white cardstock, and I'm using that circle window panel to help me figure out where I want to place this first fancy scene die. I do want to kind of include as much of the tree branches as possible. So once I get it in the right position, I then ran it through my die cutting machine, and now I'm going to go ahead and pop out that negative around the trees, but I'm going to attempt to try to leave in all those little negatives in the snow. I'm going to grab some tape here, any low-tack tape will work, and I'm just going to cut it and place it on the back side of my panel just to kind of hold those negatives in place. I did lose a couple of them, and they're actually not necessary. You won't really see them in the scene, but you will see later, I did go ahead and pop them back in. They were just stuck to my die cutting plates. Now we're going to move on to this A2 panel of sand cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and die cut just the trees out of that. Once again, I will pop out that negative, and then I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm going to fussy cut the trees out. I'm going to just basically cut along the bottom of the trunks and release them from the top of that remaining sand. So I have these 2 kind of tree trunks on either side, or trees on either side, and I will basically just adhere them. So this is basically like just paper piecing, but with like solid colored cardstock. So I've just grabbed some Hero Arts precision glue, applied it to the white tree trunks, and then I'm just going to place the sand ones right on top. This is an easy way to kind of color them, and I like how kind of smooth this is, but you could also color them with like markers if you want to, if you prefer. Now that that's cut, I'm going to go on to my third A2 panel here, and I'm going to again use that windowed circle panel to help me figure out where I want to position this fancy scene die. Once I get into the right spot, I want to make sure that Christmas tree or pine tree is between the tree branches so you can see it. So once I got it in the right spot, I ran it through my die cutting machine, and you may notice here that it actually didn't go all the way through because I have it quite moved over to the left. So we will address that in a minute. But first I'm going to grab my low-tack tape and just place it on the back side to hold all those negative pieces in the die cut. Now you can see here where I pulled off some of the other ones that were stuck to my plates. Again, this panel actually matters. This one's where you're really going to see those little negative pieces. So this is the one where you want to spend that little bit of extra time and gather up all those negatives and pop them back in, or inlay them back into the snow drift or hill. So now that that is all done, I'm going to complete. You can see here I got to complete cut it through. So I just used the end of the original die just to cut it a little bit more and still get some of those nice little textured openings in the snow drift, so it's more consistent. And once again, I added tape to the backside and popped in those remaining negatives that kind of fell out back into the panel. So now we're going to move on to cutting the tree. I have some pine cardstock here. I just die cut it with just the tree, and then I'm going to grab that scrap of sand and die cut the tree once more. This is for the tree trunk. So I will then cut the tree and the tree trunk free from that base, and we'll start by adhering that sand tree to our white tree, and then we will grab that green tree, and we've got to cut off the trunk. So I'm just going to cut off the trunk and then adhere that on top. Again, this is just some paper piecing with colored cardstock, and I just love how kind of clean this is. There's just no lines. It's very clean and looks very pretty with that colored cardstock. Now we're going to add some lines, actually just some shadows really. I have some Copic markers here, and I just want to really add more detail to this tree because this is kind of the focal point of our card. So I'm coloring along right at the edge of all the branches with these darker greens, kind of blending it out a little bit with this medium one though. to kind of just create this little gradation so the branches pop out a little bit more. Now we're going to move on to this stamp. This is the Swirl Snow Clear stamp set, included in both the classic and premium kits. I'm going to peel off all of the rings of this snow, and I'm going to center them around my tree to kind of bring your eye in to our focal point, which is this tree. Now I am using all of the rings, and I'm actually kind of using them more like stars. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So once I get them all positioned centered over my tree, I'm going to pick them up with my Misty, go ahead and remove all my layers of cardstock, and we are going to heat emboss this. So I'm going to apply some anti-static powder, and then I'll ink this up in Hero Art's Embossing Watermark ink. And I am stamping on to my card base. So this is my A2 top folding white card base that I just stamped those rings of stars onto. I then went ahead and dipped into some gold embossing powder, and now I am heat setting with my heat tool. Now that we have these stars done, we're ready to ink blend our sky. I'm going to start with cotton candy. As you can see, I kind of have some unusual colors for the sky, but I thought this was a nice contrast to all the white. I started with cotton candy ink blend, kind of the bottom half of our ring of stars, and now I'm moving on to Azalea and ink blending kind of almost the rest of this, kind of leaving a little half inch at the top free for our last two colors. And once I finish with Azalea, we'll move on to a darker kind of red purple, which is raspberry jam, and just ink blend that last little bit at the top, and even go down into the Azalea a little bit too, to kind of have that nice transition between all those two shades. And then we'll finish up with a little bit of grape juice. I just felt like it wasn't quite dark enough, so I wanted to darken it up a little bit more and kind of create more of a dramatic gradation, because you only see a small bit of it, and so I really want to amp it up. Now we're going to move on to these word dies that are part of the classic and the premium kit. I'm going to grab just kind of the outline part of the die and die cut that out of some matte gold cardstock. Once I die cut those out, I'm going to grab those shadow dies for the same words and die cut out of a piece of vellum. This is just going to help the words pop a little bit from the background. Now that I've got the vellum layer die cut out, I'm going to adhere them together. I'm going to grab a piece of scrap paper, because I'm going to kind of tap off the excess glue here, just because this is such a small, thin die cut. I'm adding just a little bit of glue and trying to do it as small as I can, but even still, my little dabs of glue are still a little too much. So once I get it all glued, I place it onto my scrap to kind of remove that excess glue, and then place it down onto the vellum. And this just helps to prevent kind of any of that excess glue kind of squishing out and being very visible on the vellum, which vellum can kind of really show that excess glue off. So again, I repeated that process for the Mary, tapped off the excess. There's still plenty of glue on it to stick to the vellum, so you don't have to worry about that. And now our sentiment is done. Now we're going to put this all together. So we have all of our layers. I'm going to start by adhering that window circle layer to our trees and snow. So I'm just going to add some liquid glue to the sides and the bottom, and then we will place this circle panel right on top. Once I have those two adhered together, I'm just going to put that panel aside, and then we'll move on to this one with our tree. I'm just going to glue it right to our card front, so I'm not layering this up as much. I will pop up that top panel, but this one I'm just going to adhere right to our card front, and I love how that tree pops against that color and those beautiful stars, those rings of stars. And now I'm going to add some foam adhesive to the edges of our top panel and stick it down so we have that little bit of dimension. Just create some really pretty shadows, and it's just something I love to do on my scenes, is just put a little bit of dimension in there. Now if we're going to finish up with our sentiment, I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue to the back side, little dabs here. They don't need much to stick this down. Place that Mary down, and then I'll finish with the Christmas to finish up the card. And once I get that sentiment into the right spot, we have one final detail to add to this card. I'm going to use gold hero pearls and add some accents to this tree, basically kind of like ornaments. Just squeezing out a small little dab. Actually, I'm not even squeezing it, just kind of letting gravity kind of bring the liquid pearls out and then just kind of touching it to the tree. So we have just really small little dabs, and I love the way it looks. It almost looks studded with gold. And this is the finished card. I really love how this card came out. I love that rich, vibrant background with our stars, drawing your eye into our tree that's beautifully adorned with ornaments. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If any questions about the products I use, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.